So I wanted a baby from the time I was a little bitty girl. I used to carry my baby doll around everywhere. And she was one of those baby alive dolls, and she had this little velvety soft skin. And they have her wrapped up in blankets, and sometimes people would bend over and they'd say, "Oh, your baby is so beautiful." Well, I was sure that by the time I was in my late 20s, I'd have a baby. Fast forward about 30 years, and I'm 34 years old, and beginning the process of artificial insemination as a single mom, or hope to be single mom. By this point, I had been married and divorced to a man when I was in my 20s, and then I came out as a lesbian. I had failed at some crazy ideas of trying to get pregnant before this point. I had this gay friend of mine, and he and I were going to have a baby, and then he was HIV positive. Then he had this great idea of seducing another friend of ours, and we were going to get really drunk and seduce this guy, and when I finally got up the nerve, and he had moved. So that didn't work out. And then, of course, there was the finding the woman of my dreams and having a baby together, but that hadn't worked out. So finally, I was at least taking some action. I saved up enough money for a few months of sperm. And I don't know if any of you know how expensive sperm is, but you would think it's all over the place, right? All over the place, wasted all the time. But then when you need it, they charge you for it. So, luckily I was working with this program, the Chicago Women's Health Center. They're an amazing program up on the north side. And they work with single and lesbian women who are trying to get pregnant. They have this great program. And so I had saved up enough money for a few months of sperm, hoping this would work. And then some of my friends threw this big sperm fundraiser. I don't know if you've ever been to a sperm fundraiser. They're pretty fun. You play things like pin the sperm on the egg, things like that. So anyways, they actually raised about 2 more months worth of money for me to inseminate. So I got started. So I don't know if some of you have probably been through that process of charting. You know, you take your temperature and all that stuff, and so what you do is you chart daily your temperature every morning, and this way you can tell if you're ovulating, so you can tell if it's time to inseminate. You also chart, went a little crazy and I was charting all my cervical fluids, and it got to the point that all my friends were like, "Please don't tell us anything else about your bodily fluids." I had enough information. And so then came all the tests. So this whole process was test. So first you start with that test where you pee on a stick and you see, are you ovulating? Did all this charting work? Then it's time to inseminate. And then it's wait for the next 2 weeks and you do your next test, see if you're pregnant. And no, not pregnant. So chart again, pee on a stick. Yes, I'm ovulating. Yes, it's time to inseminate. Run, get the frozen sperm, put it in, try again, wait. Pee on a stick, test, no, not pregnant, repeat. So I did this for almost a year. About halfway through, I took a test, found out I had low progesterone, and it was treatable. So they're like, "Don't worry, no problem, you can get through this." But as I headed for the 1-year mark, it was like, okay, there's something wrong. So my gynecologist, and I have to read this because I can never remember what this thing is called. My gynecologist ordered a test called a hysterosalpingogram, or an HSG test. So, but in order for my insurance to pay for this test, I had to be having, and it said clearly, and I'm going to read it again because it said it in my insurance work, that I had to be having sexual relations with a heterosexual partner for 1 year, and the heterosexual partner's sperm had to be viable. So in order for me to get this, how do I say it again, hysterosalpingogram test, I had to prove that my partner's sperm was viable. So by this point, I ran out of all that money. I had saved up and all the money my friends saved for me, and had found this great guy who was giving me his sperm. So he was able to go and get the test, and it was really complicated because he was on his insurance with his wife, so he had to prove that he was having heterosexual sex with me for a year, and his sperm was good, and he was good. He managed to get it all clear, send it to my insurance company, and it passed. So I got to go get my test. So I went to the hospital, and I was scared to death because, you know, this was going to give me information. The test was to inject dye in to see if my fallopian tubes were open. And so it was like if it went up one side and not the other side, it meant that you were about 50% fertile. But 50% infertile, 50% fertile. So if it went partway up, there were all these surgeries possibly they could do. There were, you know, my doctor's like, we can fix this, we can fix that, all these things. So I'm laying there, and I have a doctor and the technician, they sit there and they're watching the whole thing on the screen behind me. And my doctor starts in, and my doctor, you can tell immediately. It goes in, they read the whole thing right there, they tell you right afterwards. And my doctor starts, what do you mean? Are you doing the test right? I see nothing. I've never seen this before. I see nothing. What's going on? And the technician goes, I did the test right. So I go back and I get dressed, and of course I know the answer. I'm supposed to come out and I'm supposed to meet with my doctor, but I know the answer, right? I'm infertile. I can't make a baby the way I'm trying to make a baby. It's not going to work. And so my doctor says to me, there's in vitro fertilization. You can try that. And so I've got this big decision to make. So fast forward again, 15 years. And I spend my weekends driving all over Chicagoland to soccer tournaments, soccer games, soccer this, soccer that. I've got this boy and this girl, beautiful, amazing athletes that I could not have made myself, and that came to me through adoption. And they've turned me into a soccer mom. So I guess I passed the test.